Ukraine's very ingenious and flexible adaptation of tech development of UAV technologies has, I think, had a very significant effect on perceptions of warfare around the world. Everybody is now looking at this and at Ukraine as a kind of test bed for the development of military capabilities that don't involve 10-year programs that always come in, a day late and a dollar short.
If the war is allowed to continue as it seems to be doing so for the foreseeable future, I just wanted to see how you see the situation as it stands right now, because the diplomatic editor of the Times, Roger Boyd, he wrote this article this week in which he says this winter approaching might be President Zelensky's last stand, and he points to money to keep Ukraine armed, healthy and warm drying up, and Western will to support the war evaporating. Do you agree with that standpoint?
I think it's rather an extreme depiction of the situation, but it's not entirely wrong. The fact is, and it certainly factors into Vladimir Putin's calculations, that despite the lack of significant progress on the battlefield, and of course Putin is being lied to by his military commanders about the extent of this process all the time. Progress, sorry. The fact is that he calculates that he can wait out the West. He calculates that Western fatigue is going to set in, that we don't have the collective will or stamina to last the course, and that Ukraine is running out of options in a sense, and in particular running out of manpower. As well as weaponry. I don't think it's necessarily that bad, because I do think that, notwithstanding an absence of very clear and cohesive European determination to do whatever it takes to keep Ukraine from failing, the fact is that there are significant centres within Europe that do have this commitment. I'm thinking Poland, the Nordic states, the Baltic states, actually the UK to some degree. And I think also, notwithstanding the criticism that it often incurs, Germany too is more ready to carry on support, at least financial, which they can readily do. So I don't think it's necessarily as gloomy as Roger Boy's article suggests, but it is clear that for Ukraine, this coming winter is going to be a very testing time, and for Vladimir Zelensky as well.
And to add to that, though, Ukraine is also successfully ramping up its own defence industrial base.
Well, it is, yes, and we're seeing this, remarkable evolution in the character of conflict, to use Clausewitz's term, where there is a sort of constant, ongoing action-reaction dynamic to develop ever more effective penetrative capabilities, and at the same time to develop ever more agile, flexible, and reliable defensive capabilities. And this is, I think, just something that's going to carry on. But certainly, Ukraine's very ingenious and flexible adaptation of tech development of UAV technologies has, I think, had a very significant effect on perceptions of warfare around the world. Everybody is now looking at this and at Ukraine as a kind of test bed for the development of military capabilities that don't involve 10-year programs that always come in, a day late and a dollar short. In exchange for things that are, much more quickly and readily deliverable in response to actual conditions on the battlefield. That's not to say that the big programs are now redundant and can be, quietly buried, but this does represent a significant change, and Ukraine is very much now in the forefront of shaping this.
You mentioned earlier that President Putin is being lied to about the kind of failures or progress that his military is making on the battlefield. Do you think that might be to the detriment of what he expects of his military, and actually might actually thwart what they can actually do in future, and cause further losses that will be, in the end, sort of stall the progress.
I don't know. I don't know to what extent Vladimir Putin has a realistic assessment of what is actually going on the battlefield and what his military commanders are doing. The reality is that said military commanders are still engaged in massive corruption, massive diversion of resources that should be going to, feed, clothe, and equip their troops. And when people, raise objections to this within the military, what happens normally is they're sent on what is in effect a suicide mission. Um, to what extent Vladimir Putin is aware of and has, so to speak, priced in all of this, I just don't know. I'm not sure anybody does. But the fact is, of course, that Putin calculates that no matter what, Russia still has the mass, the resources to prevail. He's still able to get more troops to to the battlefront. He's bringing more people in. The kind of bonus joining payments for soldiers are life changing in the Russian context, and for their families in the event that the breadwinner is killed in combat. Again, the compensation is life changing, to the point where I've actually seen on Russian social media women, particularly in Russia's provinces, going online and saying, how can I get my husband to join the special military operation? Well, you can imagine if some lady living in a not particularly prepossessing part of central Russia, married to a violent alcoholic husband. The prospect of exchanging this for a life-changing payment is not unattractive.
It's quite a thought. NBC reports to have been briefed by US intelligence that President Putin is more determined than ever, to pursue the war in Ukraine. Do you think that is a correct assessment? And do you think that's getting through to the White House and how they're calculating their political strategy?
Well, I think it is a correct assessment, absolutely. As I said, Putin thinks that he can outlast everybody, and that no matter what actually goes wrong or right on the battlefront, Russia's numbers and size will eventually prevail. He may have had to trim his initial strategic objective of basically taking over, neutralizing, or perhaps better, neutering Ukraine, and settle for the four regions that are currently under contestation, but he can present that as a significant victory if that's what is needed. Is this getting through to the White House? I don't know. But I think there are worrying signs that the Trump White House is not particularly interested in hearing what a former boss of mine used to call inconvenient information. So I don't know whether those messages are actually getting through or not. It's one thing to produce the intelligence; it's another thing altogether to get policymakers, to look at it and accept it for what it is.
Are you speaking from experience?
Yes.
Do you want to elaborate?
No.
I didn't think so. How great a threat do you think Putin's Russia poses beyond Ukraine's borders to countries like Britain? Some analysts argue it's already at war with us. And as the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk put it, we need to stop living with the illusion that it would be spared.
Yes, I read Donald Tusk's piece in the Times last weekend, and I found it very compelling. The fact is, that where we are with in Europe in relation to Russia is what one academic has termed a state of unpeace. We're not formally at war with Russia, but we're not at peace with it either. And we have been on the receiving end of a lot of harmful activities, whether in the form of sabotage operations, cyber attacks, cognitive operations, directed against different Western audiences and designed to, so to speak, prise open existing cracks in the social and political fabric of our countries. All this is happening all the time, and I think looks set to intensify, irrespective of what happens in relation to Ukraine. So this I think is going to be the new normal, the new reality. I'm not sure that Russia has aspirations to occupy militarily large swathes of Europe. I think it's more about keeping European states off balance and deprived of political agency.
In order to achieve what?
In order to, basically, in order to bolster Russia's own domestic security, and basically, Vladimir Putin's calculus, a Russian calculus, which has been around throughout history, is that for Russia to be stable and secure, everywhere else has to be unstable and insecure.
You've been watching Frontline for Times Radio with me, Kate Chabot. If you'd like to be the first to get exclusive content, you can sign up for membership with the link below. You can also listen to Times Radio for the latest news or read it on thetimes.com.